The theories and ideas shared in this episode are based on publicly available information and are for the purpose of creative thought and entertainment. The topics we discuss are our own opinions and purely speculative. Our aim is to explore claims made by prominent individuals, verify them best as we can, and discuss their potential reality. We're just two regular dudes who are fascinated by this phenomena. Enjoy the conversation. Welcome back to the Rusty Saucer, everybody.
Hey guys, welcome back.
We're excited to get this episode rolling, and we're going to talk about our boy Lue Elizondo. And let me tell you, Andrew and I have been talking about Lue for a little while now. He's very interesting. This one, we have a lot of information that we have to cover about Lue. We're going to do our best to make it interesting because we do have some show notes that we need to read aloud just to make sure that we give all the groundwork of give a good representation of who Lue is so that viewers can make a judgment on whether or not they find him credible and what they make of his takes on things.
Yeah, at the end of the day, y'all make your own decision about what you think about Lou. He does have some credibility. People have confirmed that he's been in these programs that he's worked in, and he's been part of the military, and he's got a lot to say. And we're gonna dive right in.
Right, right. And yeah, again, we're going to do our best to present who he is. And from there, you guys can make your own decision. We're not going to try to sway anybody to believe. We're going to kind of discuss our personal thoughts on it. But again, this is just our takes on it. And I guess with that, we'll just jump right into it. All right, Andrew. Well, do you want to go over who Lue Elizondo is, his credentials, and how he got to where he's at?
Yeah, so Luis Elizondo is a media personality and former U.S. Army counterintelligence special agent and former employee of the office under the Secretary of Defense for Intelligence. So he's got a background in the military and known for being a special agent and working for that Secretary of Defense. Elizondo was also the director of the now defunct Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, also known as AATIP, which you'll hear a lot from us tonight, a program that is associated with the Pentagon UFO files, a fact supported by former Senator Harry Reid and the New York Times, but contested by some reporters and Pentagon officials. Elizondo has also stated that he held an array of leadership posts with AATIP, which has also been similarly contested. Elizondo has subsequently appeared in various media, including 60 Minutes, as a UFO expert.
Okay. And so in 2017, this is whenever we first get introduced to Lue Elizondo. The New York Times in 2017 conducted a thorough vetting process before interviewing Lue. And they confirmed that he worked on the Pentagon's Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, also known as ATIP. They
ATIP.
verified, what was that?
ATIP, yep, you're going to hear that a lot.
Yeah, ATIP. And they verified his credentials and backgrounds, ensuring the credibility of his claims. He's also been on 60 Minutes, CNN, Fox News, The Washington Post. So basically, all of these companies, before they had him on, they vetted him. And so the Pentagon's response to Lue is an interesting one, too. So as we went over for 2017, the Pentagon was verifying everything that Lue was saying. And then they released, what his claims were, and the Pentagon kind of backtracked a little bit. So the Pentagon has released statements related to claims made by Lue Elizondo. Elizondo, who was the former head of the Pentagon's ATIP program, has made several claims about UFOs and the government's handling of related information. In response, the Pentagon has issued statements asserting that Elizondo had no official role in UFO research, even though his role was officially confirmed. Elizondo has also filed a complaint with the agency's inspector general, claiming a coordinated campaign to discredit him for speaking out. The Pentagon has maintained that there is no credible evidence of a cover-up regarding UFOs and that most sightings are the result of misidentification of ordinary objects and phenomena. So this is really interesting that the Pentagon is basically saying, yeah, Lue worked here, but he didn't work on UFOs, but we're not going to tell you what he did here.
Right.
So it's kind of like, well, what? How do you judge what Lue did then if they're not going to tell us what he did? You
Right.
know.
And at first they were
So
all about supporting Lue, and then they kind of retracted it, like you said.
some people believe that Lue's disclosures and public appearances could be part of a controlled narrative by the government to either slowly release information about UFOs or to mislead the public away from the truth. The idea is that by having someone with Lue's credentials and background speaking on this topic, it lends credibility to the information being shared, whether it is accurate or not.
Yeah.
And so this has just been the biggest debate is Lue credible? One, is he who he says he is? Two, and even if he is who he says he is it all a controlled effort for something more sinister?
Yeah, I mean, if you ask me, there couldn't be a better spokesperson if they did want to make a psyop. He's got the background. As to whether the information that he presents is true or not, that's another story.
Right. So I guess with that, we'll kind of get into some videos about Lue, and we'll kind of start with claims that he's made, uh, shared by third-party people, and then people that are vouching for Lue, and we'll go over their credentials and verify who they are, and then we'll end with some clips of Lue himself.
So this video we're about to watch is from a host named Matthew Ford on the Good Trouble Show. This was taken off of a Twitter post by Joe Murgia at the UFO Joe is his handle. And we're going to go into how a bunch of Lue Elizondo's emails that were supposed to be kept in perpetuity have been all of a sudden deleted. And then some got leaked, and the government came out and said, oh, well, no, we do actually have some of those ones we had previously said were deleted. So something fishy's going on there, and Matt will cover more of this in this video. So let's go ahead and check it out.
Yep. And it's about a 6-minute video, but it's well worth the watch, and it's something that we have to show for you to really understand what's going on with Lue's situation and related to the claims that he makes.
When people first inquired about my story, the Pentagon initially confirmed my role in AATIP and the focus of its efforts. Shortly after Secretary Mattis left the department, the Pentagon changed its tune by saying all my emails had been deleted, the same emails that would substantiate not only my claims, but many of those who were part of the AATIP effort, including one of its sponsors, the great late Harry Reid. Now, keep in mind, as part of this legal case, United States versus Khalid Sheikh Mohammed et al., there is a court preservation order that is still in effect that requires the retention of literally all of Lue Elizondo's emails in perpetuity because of Lue's involvement in the 9/11 Commission's trial for the accused perpetrators of the attacks on 9/11. Now, all of this came back to the forefront with the release of this story by John Greenwald Jr. of the Black Vault. Quote, new FOIA release highlights redactions in key AATIP correspondence. What is the Pentagon hiding? It's a pretty damn good question. Now, while I have been critical of some of John's analysis, he actually has done excellent work utilizing the Freedom of Information Act. I've included a link to John's article in the YouTube description, and of course I encourage everyone here watching to read it. Now, through a FOIA request John filed in 2021, he finally received an email chain from the Pentagon regarding Lue Elizondo, AATIP, and Lue Elizondo's replacement at AATIP, Neil Tipton. Lue, once again, in an exclusive statement provided to the Good Trouble Show, continued, later, when confronted with a FOIA request, the Pentagon denied again the existence of any emails or correspondence between me and other seniors within the department who I was regularly engaged with until the day I left the Pentagon in 2017. Recently, one of my emails was leaked by an unknown person on Reddit. Now, this time when the Pentagon was challenged with the existence of the email, in this case, one that described the authorized transfer of AATIP leadership responsibilities to another senior member of the department and endorsed by the Secretary of Defense front office, they were forced to admit this email existed, was not deleted as they had previously claimed. Now, begrudgingly, the Pentagon finally did release the email, proving my role and participation in AATIP. The Pentagon decided to redact the mention of AATIP. Big surprise there. By this logic, they would also have to redact the name of Aero and any other office at the Pentagon. Yeah, well, big surprise there. Now, Greenwald, in his article in the Black Vault, shows the two emails. We'll show them here. And, if you look at it, I mean, this is incredibly damning. It truly demonstrates that the Pentagon continues to break federal law. And, when you look at these two things, what it does is it really lays bare the fact that Lue Elizondo's emails have not been deleted, despite what, the Pentagon wants you to think. Now, the Pentagon continues to lie to Congress, and we know a lot of members of Congress and their staffers watch this show, and I want you guys to really pay attention to this. They're lying to you and the public about all of this. Remember, a standing federal court order, as I mentioned, requires the Pentagon to keep all, not just any, all of Lue Elizondo's emails on file in perpetuity. I mentioned earlier that Pentagon Public Affairs Officer Susan Goff has been, well, let's just say, a staple at the Pentagon Public Affairs Office. And a lot of people wonder, who is Susan Goff? Well, she lists on her LinkedIn profile that she's a senior strategic planner and spokesperson at the Pentagon. She's not just a talking head. Before that, she was on the defense contractor Booz Allen Hamilton's strategic communications team. And, well, before that, she was a colonel in the United States Army. Guess what she was specializing in? Psychological operations. That's right. No big surprise there. Her thesis was on psychological operations, and that is not really a surprise. Lue Elizondo continued to note to the Good Trouble Show, it should also be noted that the Pentagon's mouthpiece for this one individual, Susan Goff, who he's alluding to here, within the Public Affairs Office, who has been given sole authority to handle all, absolutely all, FOIA requests involving UAPs, Aero, AATIP, and specifically me being Lue Elizondo. All this information is in the public sphere and can be easily verified thanks to the works of certain private citizens fighting for increased government transparency through the FOIA process. Simply put, you and Congress continued to be lied to by a few at the Pentagon who prefer to view you and the American people as sheeple. Make no mistake, the Pentagon Public Affairs Office has a long history of feeding misinformation to certain questionable journalists to mislead the American public, and that relationship is alive and well today and is in fact now legal through a new and disturbing policy of perception management. Now, quote, to add insult to injury, I was notified yesterday that there may be a personal threat against myself and several other whistleblowers formerly associated with the UAP effort for the U.S. government. As such, I would like to make this perfectly clear to the American people. I am not prone to accidents. I'm not suicidal. I'm not abusing drugs. I am not engaged in any illicit activities. If something happens to me or my family members, in the future, you will know what happened.
So yeah, that one was real interesting. Ross, what do you
Wow.
think the odds of them having those emails are?
They've got the emails, and it's crazy how there's no transparency, there's no reliability with the Pentagon. And it's just like, come on, like whenever they're talking about elected officials and non-elected officials, and the non-elected officials are the ones that have the power and the say-so for all of this stuff. Why are our congressmen and women that are elected, why are they not having access to this?
Yeah, well, the real big takeaway for me was them saying, "Oh, we need to keep these emails in perpetuity because they're related to this other case." And then all of a sudden they're saying, "No, we don't have them." One gets leaked, and then magically, "Oh yeah, well we do have that one at least that got leaked, so let's
Yeah.
release it." You
How
know,
do you
like
confirm an email if you don't have it?
yeah,
So they confirmed it, but they said they didn't have it. So
yeah, and these emails would kind of prove some of the claims that Luis Elizondo is making. You know, so
yep.
it's real convenient that they disappeared.
Yeah, no, this is just there's so much going on in this Lue Elizondo situation. And it's just wild that Susan Goff, I think that's what her name was, she's wrapped in this. And it's just like, oh my
Yeah, the
gosh.
fact that she had a history with psyops.
Yep.
So that kind of makes you start thinking,
Hmm.
well, could this be a psyop then? Like, what's
Right.
going on?
And maybe they early on, certain groups like different UFO prominent leaders and individuals, when they were throwing out the psyop flags, maybe it was because she was connected to him. Maybe
Right.
that they thought that she was connected to him, and when that came out, it was like, hey, Lou is with this golf person who is related to psyops, so keep an eye on him, which is understandable, you
Yes.
know but it's really weird. It's obvious that the Pentagon has something, they know something, and they don't want us to know about it.
Yeah, it's pretty
In
much
my
needs to
opinion,
know.
that's kind of what I'm getting from this.
Yeah, they're keeping it needs to know, and so when we leak some information, they're like, "Well, we already have it, so I guess you need to know now since you've already seen part of it. So no problem showing you what you already know." But
Right.
yeah, it's just it's really interesting to see like how can they say that these emails, which we used to say E for email means eternal, it doesn't go away. They just magically
Hmm.
exclaimed, "Oh, they're gone."
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's funny. It's just like, man, where are these emails? Oh, we don't have them. Well, what about this email? Oh, yeah, that is one of them.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that leaked
Wait,
one.
how do you know that?
Yeah. By the way, where did you get that leaked one too? We'd like to know.
Yeah. Who leaked
Yeah.
that? On Reddit?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Oh man, how Reddit gets dragged into this. That's funny. So, yep. So the next couple videos that we're going to check out are just other people that are vouching for Lou, and they responded to this video that we just watched from the Good Trouble show.
Yeah. The other thing too, I guess I forgot to mention was him saying that there were threats to his life. That was that was this video, right? That where he was saying there were threats to his
Mhm.
life. Yeah. So I mean, that's a scary thing to think of on its own. That you come out with some information and then you got to be worried for your own personal safety.
Right. Yeah, no, that's wild. Just reading that, it gives me chills.
Yeah.
That you have to put that out in the public and let people know that if something happens to me, I'm not prone to accidents.
Yes.
I'm in the right mental capacity, that I'm not suicidal, I'm not depressed, I'm not sad. I am okay, that hey, nothing should happen to me. And if
Yeah.
something does, that's very worrying. Like ah I don't know if there's truth to it. If there's truth to what he's saying, that's kind of concerning.
Yeah. It's almost like a spy movie or something.
Right. Yeah.
This video is brought to us by UAP James. All right, our next video is going to be discussing with Gary Nolan on a podcast where he talks about threats to his safety and to Elizondo's for disclosing information. And just so you know, Gary Nolan is an American immunologist, academic, inventor, and business executive. He holds the Ratchford and Carlotta A. Harris Professor Endowed Chair in the Department of Pathology at Stanford University School of Medicine. Nolan has founded biotechnology companies and has published numerous medical research papers. So let's check out the video.
Recently, another friend of yours, colleague Lue Elizondo, in a statement said he was aware of threats made against himself, his family, and other whistleblowers. I'd love your take on that and how you see that playing out. And do you think this could put a stop to other whistleblowers coming forward?
It certainly casts a pall. I mean, I know the specific incident that Lue is discussing, and it was real, and it's real, and it's ongoing. You know, that information might go public. It's not my place to say it, but it's pretty serious. I mean, look, I got a phone call myself at one point, basically telling me to be careful how I was talking about things. And I won't go into the specifics of what was said and all the rest, but it shook me. It was a call from somebody in the government, or representing what was being said in certain circles. And it was a threat, you know, that was the first time I ever felt, okay, this is getting personal. It wasn't a threat by them. It was telling me that the way I was talking about things, I needed to be careful, because there are others who will.
So yeah, could you imagine that, Ross, getting a phone call from somebody high up saying, you need to watch what you're saying?
It's wild, man.
Yeah,
It's
and
wild.
most of these people have families they have to worry about, you know, they have things to lose. So I could see them being scared into not coming out forward some information that they have, being
Right.
intimidated.
Yeah, and this just it goes back to the disinformation campaigns and just lack of transparency.
Yeah, but
Trying to
still,
keep things controlled, and
yeah, you wonder, is this someone just acting on behalf of somebody, or is this someone just in government acting on their own to try not to have information leak? That's the other big thing.
right.
This video is brought to us by Skyfire News. Our next video is going to have Tim Gallaudet, who is basically backing up Elizondo in his claims. Tim Gallaudet is an American oceanographer and retired Rear Admiral in the United States Navy. He served as the Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Oceans and Atmosphere and Acting Administrator for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA. Gallaudet is known for his work in ocean science, naval operations, and national security. He has been involved in the UFO community, supporting the study of unidentified aerial and submerged phenomenon. So let's check out what he has to say.
There are individuals who I will not name who I believe are getting paid, but every day they get out online and they're well known in this UAP community, and their number one job is to discredit these national authorities, these people like Lue Elizondo, who was with the task force, the UAP task force. I've met and trust and know, and he is 100% who he says he is, and what he says he's seen and knows, I have total confidence in. People like him, he's an active target of people discrediting him, and others too.
Interesting.
So yeah, he's basically sitting there saying that Elizondo is credible and he believes all of his claims. That's a big statement.
Right. Here again, we've got a guy like Tim Gallaudet that's got really good credentials, a really good, very impressive background, and he was the Rear Admiral for the U.S. Navy, and he's backing up Luis Elizondo. So very interesting.
Yeah, I agree. So this next video is going to be Colonel Carl Nell, and he basically just gives some credentials to Elizondo. This is going to be our last video with people talking about Elizondo, and we'll be getting to Elizondo real soon, so bear with us on that. It's brought to us by the YouTube channel Salt.
Everyone, thank you for coming this evening. I'm glad that we are the final talk of this year's SALT event. And I'm very excited to discuss what I consider to be one of the most consequential questions of our lifetime, which is, are we alone in the universe? And I'm very lucky to have Carl Nell here joining me for this conversation. Carl, thank you so much for coming. And Anthony and AJ over at SALT, thank you so much for hosting this. So Carl, maybe to begin, can you share a little bit about your background, who you are, and perhaps why people should care what you say.
Sure. Well, thanks, Alex. It's a pleasure and honor to be here. And it's a fantastic event, and I'm glad to see a large bunch of folks that stuck it out to the end for this talk. So I was fortunate. I had a 4-year ROTC scholarship to Penn. I graduated with a degree in electrical engineering. The Army sent me overseas to do signal corps engineering projects, so I did a lot of strategic comm projects in Europe. I ended up working in Army Space Command. I commanded a satellite ground station, war trace to the Joint Chiefs. I spent some time at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. The Army ultimately sent me to get a master's in mechanical engineering, a master's in strategic studies, graduate work in computer science. I was on track to stay in, but I decided that I wanted to pursue more of a technical career. So I got out and ended up working at Bell Labs, which was a fantastic place. Unfortunately, I was there during the trivestiture that folks may be familiar with, where the company got split up. I left Bell Labs and ended up working in Lockheed Missiles and Space. I worked at Northrop Grumman. I've ran strategic technology programs in the defense industry, worked for a lot of the 3-letter agencies, ultimately was a deputy chief of staff or deputy CTO for a $2 billion company. I was a vice president general manager of a Northern Virginia-based R&D firm. I stayed in the military, in the reserve. I commanded at every grade level through brigade. I was fortunate to stand up the Army's newest expeditionary MI brigade. I was the deputy chief of staff for a combatant command. Ultimately, this experience sort of combined to give me the opportunity to come in and advise Army Futures Command, the largest reorganization in the Army Reserve since really 1973, on how the Army could be more effective. And my last assignment was involved with the UAP task force, which maybe is the most apropos for this discussion.
And so, Carl, here's the $1 million question. Do you believe that a higher form of non-human intelligence has visited this planet?
Right. So non-human intelligence exists. Non-human intelligence has been interacting with humanity. This interaction is not new, and it's been ongoing. And there are unelected people in the government that are aware of that.
And so, Carl, that is quite a bold statement. I'm wondering, and I'm curious, how confident are you that that is true?
There's zero doubt.
And Carl, what evidence have you seen? What was the moment where you developed this level of conviction? Because what you're saying is extremely consequential and very important. And I know that a lot of people here, even perhaps, may not believe that statement.
Right. Well, probably a better way to ask that is, how can the folks in the audience come to a common understanding of what this phenomenon is? And so there's sort of two tracks here. One is from first principles, and another is actually from the data. So let's take a look at the data. So we can look at some folks that have very high level access to information, like Paul Hellyer, who is the defense chief for Canada, has come out and said the same thing. We can look at Ham Eshed, the head of Israel's, or the former head of Israel's Space Force, has said the same thing. Chris Mellon, Deputy Assistant Secretary for Intel, SAPCO, has essentially said the same thing. Lue Elizondo has said the same thing. David Grush has said the same thing. David Grush cleared for presidentially level material. So you're looking at people that are in a position to know this, and they're telling you the same thing. You could take a look at the...
Yeah, so Carl Mill here has some big claims of his own.
Yeah, and what's interesting is he's making it apparent that he's naming off people that have access to classified information. And he's saying that all of these people that have access to this information are all essentially saying the same thing and making very similar claims, and that there is a very large group of them that have been coming out and saying the same thing, that have done high level work for government entities not only in the United States, but most of the names he named were in the United States, but around the world.
Right. And Lue Elizondo being one of those.
Mm-hmm. So again, we just wanted to, really present Lue as having people that back him up, vouching for him, and present that to everybody before we introduced his actual claims from
Yeah,
himself.
Lue has some pretty
himself.
big claims, so we're just trying to make him seem credible and give him what's due to his credibility.
Yep.
So in this next video, we actually have Lue Elizondo giving a speech over many different topics. It's brought to us by the Twitter handle @Michelangelo. Awesome name. Let's check it out.
I remember distinctly a conversation I had with Dr. Lakatsky during the early time when he was, I think, assessing me is probably what they were doing. See if I would be a good fit. And I remember him very distinctly at the end of the conversation. He pulled his glasses down and he looked over his glasses at me and he said, "What do you think about UFOs?" And I paused for a moment and I responded truthfully. I said, "I don't." And he said, "Well, do you not believe in them?" And I said, "No, I didn't say that. You asked me if I thought about what do I think about UFOs, and I said I don't. I don't have the luxury to think about them. I'm too busy, trying to chase bad guys and make things work." And he said to me, he said, "Well, that's fair enough, but don't let your own personal bias get the best of you, because what you may learn here, may challenge any preconceived notions or narratives that you have." And that's really when I first learned what this program was about. We were getting multiple reports, a lot of reports of UAP. We call them UAP now, but in the vernacular, UFOs were being encountered over controlled U.S. airspace and theaters of combat, and were posing in some cases a flight safety risk to our pilots. Now, what do I mean by that? So we have reports and videos, in some cases, of these UFOs splitting a combat formation. Now, if you know what a combat formation is, these aircraft fly very close to each other in a combat scenario, right? So they're like this. When you have a UAP splitting the formation, that's problematic. Furthermore, we have countless reports of these things being encountered over controlled U.S. airspace, over sensitive military facilities and installations, and we had no idea where these things were from. The origin, we had no clue. Their performance characteristics were stunning. These were beyond next generation technology. These were things that could perform in ways that outperformed anything that we had in our inventory, and we were pretty sure outperformed anything that our adversaries had. We were getting these routine pleas, these cries from the field. In fact, I remember one email very specifically where one of the senior people in the fleet, a very senior officer, basically said, "Look, these things are all over the ship. I don't know what to tell you. I can't keep people below deck forever and keep this a secret. What do you want me to do?" We keep telling him, "Look, the cavalry's coming. We've got these plans in place to help you out." And every time we would want to get this briefed up to a higher level, we were being basically stovepiped and then cut off. We actually had at one point if you will, a trap set up to collect information on these UAP. I can only talk about it because I've now had approval by the Pentagon to talk about it. It has now been cleared for me to talk about it. But we had a plan to set up a real big nuclear footprint, something we knew would be irresistible for these UAP. And then once we started seeing these UAP, the trap would be sprung. Congress is being briefed fairly routinely by whistleblowers. Some of them have not been made public yet. New whistleblowers are ready to come out, provided they had the right legal protection. Oh, we were told by the people who had the material. I mean, it's kind of when they sit there and say, "Yeah, look, we're happy to have this conversation with you. There's some things that you're going to need to do if you want, more access to it. But yeah, we're happy to give this stuff to you." That's a big deal. That's kind of I'm careful what I say here, but that's a holy cow moment, right? But you could probably put some expletives in there if you wanted to. That's a seismic revelation. Then, of course, you have the material science and analysis that's been done on some of this material, which, look, despite what some people say now, like, "Oh, well, this is a missile casing from the 1950s. I know for a fact, because I had a member, and I'm not going to say which company, but let's just say one of the most elite aerospace corporations in the world do analysis on it. And I can tell you that what they came to a conclusion with, and after they actually was able to manufacture at a macro, very crude level, at over $1 million and broke the machine in the process, we know conclusively this was not technology that was manufactured in the 1950s by some sort of missile company. Look, if you look at it temporally and say, well, maybe the Russians have that technology now. Okay, sure. Let's suspend reality and say they do. But they didn't in the late 1940s. And so that would be like walking into King Tut's tomb and, Carter finding a fully assembled 747. I think it's pretty clear that when you first see Trump being asked about the topic, he said, yeah, I don't particularly believe it. But interestingly, the next time he was asked, he's like, hey, there's something there. There's something to it, right? There were some very peculiar incidents that occurred simultaneously while I was involved in the AATIP portfolio. And I'll tell you, it wasn't just me. A lot of the folks in AATIP experienced very similar things. It was witnessed by friends, neighbors. What the connection is, I can't tell you for sure. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. But we experienced, my family, my kids, my wife, some neighbors saw these green little diffuse balls of light, luminous balls of light. Think of a volleyball, but without hard edges, right? Floating through the house. You can call them an orb, I guess. You can call them, maybe some sort of drone or remote operated vehicle. I've never seen anything like it. But I guess some people describe it as like ball lightning, maybe. But a diffuse green orb ball just hover right down the hall and disappear right through a wall. What, if any, the connection is to the UAP, I don't know. I'm just reporting it in the book so people know, right? If you're going to be transparent, you got to be as transparent as you can to include even in your own life, and even if it makes you look kind of crazy, that's what happened. And if it was just me, maybe I wouldn't have written about it. But the fact that it happened to other colleagues of mine that were in AATIP, I wanted to share that experience. And again, is there a congruency? Is there a relationship between the two? I don't know. Some people speculate that there is. Maybe it's a small reconnaissance drone or UAP that's, they're interested in our weapon systems. Well, they're obviously interested maybe in the people who are looking into them. I don't know. I don't want to speculate too much because I simply don't have enough information or data. I have my opinion, but at the end of the day, my opinion doesn't really matter. If it was just me that saw these things, I probably, again, wouldn't have said anything. But the fact is my whole family saw them. And other members in AATIP experienced this same thing as well. So what the relationship is, I absolutely could not tell you, but it was very perplexing.
Wow. Yeah, that was a whole lot there.
Yeah. But we finally got to see it from the horse's mouth, right?
Right.
we got here. So it's good to kind of see him saying it himself. And again, it's a lot. It's a lot to unpack, and we really wish that we could see some of this stuff. He's still holding back on what he can say and what he can't. He can kind of give us general information of what these things look like, but he's not going to tell us where they came from, if he even knows. It's a lot. It's interesting, and it just makes you wonder, how much does the government, some of these government agencies, how much do they know about the universe, the world around us, that they're not telling us about, that's not public knowledge.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Fravor video we did where these craft are doing things that our technology cannot do, nor can the enemies as far as we know. And then the whole thing is how can I keep this secret when there's all these other people that are seeing these craft?
Right. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing whenever he said that. It's like, this sounds just like Fravor, who we covered last week.
Yeah.
So.
And it's interesting, the green balls of light. We've heard that in other stories too. Like specifically, I've heard that with documentaries about Skinwalker Ranch, with crop circles. They talk about these glowing balls of energy, these light balls that float around. So,
right, yeah, the orb stuff is very
Orbs.
Interesting. Yeah, and how it's connected to UAP or UFOs. Very, very interesting stuff.
Also, the big thing about him setting that trap by putting some nuclear stuff in the vicinity. We've heard that, yeah, there's been many spottings around our bunkers of UAP or UFO.
Right, right. And that's interesting that they figured out a way to kind of lure them, where they can, you know, observe them and try to figure out, what's going on with that phenomenon.
I'd like to know the story of what happened with the trap if they're able to ever able to deploy it.
Right. Okay, fellas, we have reached our final video. After this video, we're going to go over a few screenshots of Lue's upcoming book, which is going to be released this week. So Lue, after releasing his book, is going to go on a slate of interviews. And one of his big interviews coming up is with Ross Coulthart, who broke the David Grush story. And this is just a short 30-second clip of that upcoming interview with Ross Coulthart and Lue Elizondo.
Let's check it out.
Friday, a stunning News Nation exclusive. Is the U.S. government still lying to us about UFOs?
We're not alone.
Special correspondent Ross Coulthart goes one-on-one with a former Pentagon official who's risking everything to unearth the truth.
We're well beyond reasonable doubt.
Sharing secret and new information never revealed before until now.
It sounds crazy. What I'm saying is real.
Confessions of a UFO hunter. Friday at 9/8 Central, only on News Nation. Friday, a stunning News Nation exclusive.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that.
Yep, there you have it. So we are basically going to be covering everything up until Lue Elizondo's official book release. And the pages that we have were some leaks. It's kind of gone everywhere, so we're not going to try to go too much into the actual book, but just kind of a preview of what's in there. And we may come back to revisit Lue Elizondo later down the road if some of these interviews lead to new topics that were not available to us during this recording. All right, so now we're going to go over some of the excerpts from Lue's new book that we'll be releasing this week. And so this is a conversation that Lue had with Hal Puthoff. And Hal Puthoff is an American physicist and engineer known for his work in several fields, including lasers, quantum engineering, and space propulsion. He has also been a significant figure in parapsychology, particularly in the early stages of the United States government-funded remote viewing program, Stargate. Puthoff is the founder and CEO of EarthTech International, Inc., where he conducted research on electrodynamics, gravitation, and quantum vacuums. He also served as the director of Institute for Advanced Studies at Austin. And so basically, this guy, he's got a lot of credentials under engineering, physics, and was a big part of special government agencies. And as you can see here, he has some interesting things to say about UFOs.
Yeah, so let's get started. Hal looked at me, clearly weighing whether to bring me further into a circle of trust. Yes, Lue, it was real. You mean to tell me that a UAP actually crashed and we covered it up? That's exactly what happened, he replied. I went in quiet and let his words sink in. Hal went on to tell me something else that truly blew my mind. 4 deceased non-human bodies were in fact recovered from the 1947 Roswell crash. After processing that, I fired off a slew of questions in head out of mouth. Have we recovered non-human bodies from other UAP crashes? He looked at me as if debating how to answer. It was clear to me he wasn't ready to tell me the answer. I was still the new guy. We'll tell you more soon enough, he said. Is every incoming president told the truth? No. Well, what about Congress? What about the Gang of Eight? I said, referring to the legendary bipartisan group of political leaders supposedly charged with knowing all of America's black programs. Hal explained, the sad truth is, DoD regards presidents, elected officials, and politician appointees as temporary hires. They do not need to know since they will not be in their position for very long. unless something happens or they really push for it. U.S. presidents do not need to get briefed. And those who have been briefed have only been given the most basic of information. Like Neo in the movie The Matrix, I inhaled that red pill. Tell me more. That's amazing. So first he gets into Roswell, saying that we
Yep.
recovered, and there's been plenty of people that were said that they saw the Roswell crash in person and that
Yep.
they saw little bodies being exhumed and taken away from that scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. It's somebody who has been in the Pentagon. Now the Pentagon won't tell us what he did there, but it is official that he was in the Pentagon. He's saying on record that he was briefed about non-human intelligence and bodies recovered by the U.S. government.
Yeah. And then he goes on to say that, elected officials aren't seen to be held in high enough regard to be revealed the truth because they're just short term. Whereas,
Right.
they've got this information, they're going to keep it safeguarded and not just tell somebody who's going to be in and out of office, which is really scary to think. You would always think, oh, if you became a president, you would want to know and you would find out, but then you probably wouldn't even get access to the information off of this.
Right. Yeah, and aren't we the people supposed to be electing the people that are supposed to be making all these decisions?
Right.
Shouldn't they know what's going on in our
Yeah.
universe and the world around us to make good decisions?
Well, you could see these people in these black programs just saying, "Well, what's the point of telling somebody that's only going to be around for a little bit? What are they going to do anyway?"
Right. Well, they were elected by the people.
Yeah. Well,
So,
yeah. There's always that chance too that the people aren't ready to know, or at least so they think.
yeah, I don't know about that, Andrew.
So we bring you the truth.
Yeah. Yeah, we're trying.
So this next one is a deep dive on remote viewing. We might lose some of you here because this is a controversial topic, pretty hard to prove. So I'll let Ross take over on this one.
Yeah, and so remote viewing is very interesting. You can do research. There's a lot of declassified CIA documents about remote viewing, and that they did have some success with it. Officially, they shut down remote viewing at the CIA, but as we know, what sometimes can happen is they'll shut down one program and then rename another program and do the same exact thing and act like that it's disappeared and they no longer do it. Lue Elizondo claims to be one of these remote viewers. And so I'm going to read this first page, and this is basically just what he says about the program and his involvement in it. So Stargate trained super soldiers to spy on hard targets using their psychic gifts. No, I am not kidding. This was an official U.S. government program. They called the highly controversial technique remote viewing. The program, pioneered at Stanford University in the late 1960s, was led by none other than Hal Puthoff, whom I met at the dinner meeting I described earlier. Hal had been a Stanford University researcher and an employee of the NSA when he and his colleague Russell Targ were approached by the CIA and told that Russia had a remote viewing program. The US needed to catch up and beat their efforts. That's how it all started. Very interesting that there's all these different races. There's space races, there's remote viewing races between the US and communist countries. So, back at it here. Extrasensory perception had won over supporters in government who were initially dubious when shocked that the technique worked. No one understood the mechanism. The CIA didn't care why it worked, only the thing that mattered was that it did. When government trained psychics focused their attention on a particular subject, they gleaned images, feelings, thoughts, and intelligence that were otherwise impossible to collect via conventional spy tradecraft. Stargate became so successful, Hal reported directly to the director of the CIA and the White House on a regular basis. As a measure of the program's success that can be talked about, its psychics once located a Russian supersonic jet that crashed somewhere over Africa. Our best satellites couldn't locate it, and neither could the Russians. One of our remote viewers saw and pinpointed the exact location of the downed aircraft in the Congo. The U.S. was able to swoop in and salvage this valuable target based on their remote viewers' vision alone. President Jimmy Carter famously referenced the case to the media. Remote viewers also located Brigadier General James Lee Dozier, who had been kidnapped in Italy by the Red Brigade in 1981. In the Persian Gulf War, remote viewers identified and located storage facilities that housed deadly chemical war agents. The success stories of remote viewing were legion and seemed almost magical. The stories I can't share are even more mind-blowing. Of course, right?
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
Of course. So anyway, that's kind of this page about it and kind of an introduction to what remote viewing is and Lue's involvement in it. And then Andrew is going to talk about one particular incident that is really interesting.
Yeah, so also there was a movie a few years back called The Men Who Stare at Goats, which is based on a true story about the groups that were in the army or in the military and did this remote viewing. It's very controversial, remote viewing in general. So let's go ahead and check out the next one.
And don't close the door on remote viewing just yet. There is a lot of information out there that actually has some credibility. Again, the CIA, it's not a debate that remote viewing was happening and that there was success in it. It's more about that they continued doing it. And there is evidence that there was success with remote viewing. It's just interesting that if you think about it, if you found something that did work like this, that you can spy, remotely on your adversaries, I mean, why wouldn't you want to try to keep it a secret?
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. And there is evidence to show that they did have success with it. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, it's super interesting. As far as it being all that highly successful, or people made guesses that sometimes worked. That's still left to be open or left to be seen. But
and there are also instructions you can go if you do more research on this. The CIA actually even has instructions on how to remote view, what frequencies to use to kind of get in that state of mind. And so, if you want to try it out, you can. There are instructions to try it out. Very interesting stuff.
So once in the Middle East, I had a bad feeling about a specific location that 5 of my men were scheduled to investigate the very next day. We can't do it, I told one of my subordinates. There's something off about this. I don't want you guys going in. Well, that's fine, he said tersely, but someone's going in. Besides, the British already cleared the area yesterday. An allied team went in instead and encountered an IED. In the following years, I was privileged to meet 4 other remote viewers who had been trained in the discipline. We often talked about our experiences with the technique. One afternoon, we discussed the capture of a suspected terrorist who had been on the U.S. government's radar for a long time. He was being held in a location thousands of miles from us. I had been to the location before. As a test, we all gathered together in a secure facility at the Pentagon with our brown bag lunches and attempted an act of remote group viewing. We directed our conjoined thoughts toward a specific terrorist in his cell. None of us had any sympathy for this ruthless killer who gleefully took the lives of our comrades. I wonder if we would leave a real impact on him. Something happened, all right. Months later, we learned that the terrorist had told his lawyers that the CIA had sent 5 angels to disrupt his sleep. 5 figures washed in a white light stood over his bed and shook it violently, leaving him terrified. He felt that judgment was upon him. He shared the story with his attorney, and the tale later ended up in the mainstream newspaper article about a secret CIA program being used to harass his client. I told Hal Puthoff that what we had done. He was not surprised. So yeah, using their power to shock some terrorists. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's a pretty wild claim. But let's also not misrepresent this as Lue saying that he's an angel or anything. This was the terrorist interpretation of it.
Oh, Lue's no angel.
Yeah. We don't know what Lue is, honestly. This is just there's so much to go over with Lue Elizondo, from orbs to alien bodies to remote viewing.
Yeah.
And remote viewing, it is a very interesting thing. The thing is there's a lot of fantastical claims, and this is one of them. However, this was verified. This is true. The lawyer did speak out about this, and this was something that the public did not know about. This was something that the public did not know about the CIA program at that time.
So once again, guys and gals, I just want to say thanks for joining us. At the end of the day, you're gonna have to form your own opinions about Lue Elizondo. We just wanted to kind of point out his credibility and some of the claims that he's been making. I find it highly fascinating. My judgment is still to be remain to be seen on how I really feel about Lue. I would love for all of his claims and stories to be true. I think that would be the coolest thing ever. But I still am a little skeptic about some of the things. Remote viewing is a little bit hard for me to follow or to believe in, I should say. But yeah, once again, thanks for if you made it this far. Thanks for listening to the video. What about you, Ross?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Lue Elizondo has so many things that you're like, that's fantastical. I don't know if that's something that's realistic. But then you have his old workforce, the Pentagon, trying to hide who he is and tried to stomp his credibility by deleting emails and basically deleting everything that he did there and not sharing it with anybody. That's what's weird about all of this, that it's like, okay, if Lue isn't who he says he is, or if he didn't do these things, why aren't you being transparent on what he actually did do? What was he doing? If he wasn't doing these things, what was he doing? That's kind of my take on it. And their reaction to his claims is what makes it more believable for me, of maybe what he's saying, there's some credibility to it. And then plus, as we showed, there are countless people that have vouched for Lue Elizondo, and a number of them have very high security clearances in government, or had high security clearances in government, either current and former members. And then it's a lot. It's a lot to unpack. If we had access to the things that he's talking about, that would make this much easier. Again, we don't have access to classified information, so it's hard for us to verify anything. But it's also, in the same light, can we judge his claims because we don't have that information?
That's true.
Is it fair for us to judge it if we don't have access to it, and the people that do have access are saying that his claims are valid?
Yeah, and the whole thing about, he definitely was high ranking in AATIP. There's no doubt about that. The governments came out and said that. But yeah, unless some more emails leak, how are we going to know what they really have or what got deleted, or lost, as they
Right.
say?
Right. It's just the contradiction the Pentagon has with AATIP is that it had nothing to do with UFOs. Yet by the name, it sounds like it did. It had everything to do with UFOs. That's my opinion on it. I don't know if I trust Lue 100%. I think that it could be a situation where maybe Lue believes all of the things that he's talking about. It's just I don't know if everything is actually true. And I do believe that there could be a group of people around Lue that they could be all kind of sharing the same information and coming up with the same conclusion, and kind of parroting one another. I think that's a possibility of what could be happening.
Yeah, very, very well could be.
Mm-hmm. What do you think of the PSYOP theory? Do you think that he is part of a controlled PSYOP knowingly?
Well, that's really hard to say. I mean, this came out right, or the first time he got on my radar was when the pandemic was happening. And
Hmm.
so there are many people who think that disinformation got put out there to keep our minds off of what the government was doing and how they were
Right.
handling the pandemic. So that, like I said, that was the first time I experienced anything with Lue Elizondo. Um, but yeah, it would be really interesting to think, what do they have to gain from doing a psyop? Even if it
Right.
was a distraction from the pandemic, like what does that accomplish at the end of the day? So I have a hard time saying yay or nay to the psyop idea, but nothing surprises me. We found out many times in the past the government has used psyops, or disinformation, or they created events so they could get into different wars. They're
Right.
not angels or innocent from doing that type of stuff. It's just, you got to
Right.
ask, is the juice worth the squeeze? Like, is there really a reason for them to do that?
Yeah.
What could the best
th-
outcome be?
that's my take too on it. Is it's hard to see what do you get out of this? What do you get out of a guy coming out and saying there's aliens?
Right.
That's not going to help us go to war with China or Russia or get involved in a situation over there, you
Yeah.
know?
And at the end of the day, Lou is a big media person. He is making a book. He is monetizing this a little bit. So there's also that to take into account.
Right. Yeah, because he is making money from this, and anybody that says that they're not is lying. Because they are, and I think that's okay to make money from it.
Yeah.
If you're spending time and resources on something like this, I think that you should, it is fair to get compensation for it. What I do have a problem with is whenever people say they're not getting compensation when they are,
Right.
and that's okay. Again, you can get compensation for this. If you're doing a service, you should be compensated for it. But yeah, I mean, a lot of fantastical claims. And I mean, it goes everywhere. I mean, this story goes, again, it's from orbs
Yeah.
to UFOs to remote viewings to alien bodies captured in Roswell, and yeah. I mean, it's a lot, but again, in my opinion, I think that it is harsh for us to also say that can't happen or that is not possible when we do not have access to the information that he has.
That's true.
And when you see what people are saying that do have access to that information, they're saying that what he's saying is accurate and that it is true.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Very true. Yeah. But
mhm.
interesting guy, interesting story nonetheless.
Yep. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for us for tonight. Thank you guys for watching. Very, very exciting episode. We've been talking about this all week. And I just wanted to go over too. It means the world to us if you guys put a like on our videos, if you subscribe to our channel. Whenever you subscribe to our YouTube channel, you will not be getting emails or anything like that. I just want to make that clear. All it does is it recommends our videos on your homepage when you go to YouTube, or when you're watching a YouTube video, it may recommend one of our videos to watch next if we released one recently. So it really does help us get our content out there when you like the video and whenever you subscribe to our content.
Yeah, also share it with any friends or family that you have that might be interested in it. If you do want to go the extra step and get notifications, though, you can click that bell and it will send you notifications. There is a chance you might get emails then if you sign up for notifications, but just subscribing is just supporting our channel. So thanks
Mm-hmm.
again, guys, for listening to us and supporting us. We really enjoy doing this.
Yep. And we'll see you guys again next week. We're going to go over David Grush, another really interesting story. And with that, Rusty Saucer out.
Oh.